would be free, all right? We like the word free, don't we, all right? So I decided, all right, I'm going to take her, and I talked to Heather because I figured my mom would really love to see her, and my dad, and my grandmother's 95. I don't know how many more times that she may get a chance to get to know one of her youngest great-grandbabies. And so I thought, man, I need to take Presley with me. And so we talked about it, and the closer we got, Heather was like, I just need a break. I think this is a great idea, but she was a little nervous, and she's giving me her long list, moms, of all the things that I can't forget that I have to do while she's not with Presley and stuff. But she's ready for the break. So I got, as a dad, to take her on 2 plane rides by myself, all right, pushing the stroller, all right. All the ladies like, whoa. Like, that doesn't happen very often, in the airport, and you're pushing through, and they're like, he's a single dad, but he's got a ring. Like, what's going on? I don't understand, I don't know what's going on here. And so, so I do have to admit, I got a few extra looks than I normally get, all right, in the airport, all right. So I think it was more for Presley, all right, than for me. But so she's she's just like, she's going down the airport. She's loving it. She has no idea what's going on, right? And she's the loudest thing in the airport. She's like, hi, to every single person that we meet, all right? And then, like, as soon as we pass them, then she's like, bye. And so, like, everybody, just made everybody feel good about their day, So all these people are smiling at us, probably laughing at us, after I passed and everything. But I get to yesterday, I've done everything that I know for the most part that I'm going to admit to Heather, right, all right, all the things that I think that I was supposed to do. And then I think I did everything right. I thought I packed everything, but I get home last night. We got in at like 11:15, 11:30 in Cincinnati. We drive back. We had to wait for bags and all that. We got in about 1:15, 1:30 last night. And so I'm unpacking everything. And the only thing really that I think that I forgot, besides sunglasses, which I lose those all the time. Anybody else like me? You always lose your sunglasses? Okay, good. A few of you. Thank you for admitting that. So I lost those, but other than that, I left like my whole toiletry bag, everything somehow didn't get packed into the big bag. I remember packing up the razor, the toothbrush, all that stuff. My glasses. All right, I don't. Most of y'all don't know I have glasses. I got contacts or whatever. I don't really wear them a lot, but I do a lot of times like to wear them at the end of the day, and so all of that stuff is left in Oklahoma somewhere. I got to call my mom after service day and be like, Mom, is all that stuff there? Because the glasses, it's kind of important. So I don't pack that bag. That's the one little thing that I forgot to do. All right. Get in with Presley around 1:15. She still had plenty of sleep last night. She slept like this on the plane, actually. I think we have a picture of this. Do we have a picture? Please tell me you got the picture. What'd you say? Oh, the slides are on the computer. Spencer, can you grab those? That would be really, really helpful. Yeah, because we're going to need those today. So I get in, and she slept basically like this, since you guys don't have the picture. I have to show you the picture here in just a little bit. She slept like this. She had like her head like up against the window, all right, and the legs are like kind of kicking the lady like in the middle aisle, all right, seat. And she just slept that way for like 2 straight hours on the whole plane, all right? So but anyways, so I'm looking for that darn bag. It's not there. I had one extra contacts case, all right, back at the house last night. No glasses, but that led to another thing. So I realized that as I was in transit, all right, with my soap bag, all right, I have like a little Kroger bag that I put my soap in. All right, as I was in transit, putting it back where it goes. I normally take a shower in the basement. That's just lets Heather sleep, and I don't wake her up with all the things I'm doing in the morning. The soap bag, apparently the top has come off, and it was like a full thing of soap, right? All right, the liquid type of soap, And so all of that soap has dripped into the bag, and what I didn't realize, because I didn't have my glasses, because I didn't have my toiletry bag, was that I have now caused basically a leak of soap, all right, like a trail of soap all the way along our whole upstairs, like from our bedroom, the hallway, down the stairs, down through the foyer, all the way down to the basement where I finally finished with the soapy, leaky bag. And all of that because I forgot one thing, this nasty Kroger bag dripping. Not only that, this morning I went to grab my toothbrush. Heather had, for the first time in like 5-6 years, thrown all of my toothbrushes away, the 12 that I keep, over in the corner, all right? And all my extras, you always got to have an extra toothbrush, right? And so I grabbed one out of a package on my wife's sink thinking that it was unused, all right, figuring it was unused. But how many of you guys have ever put one back in the package after you've used it? Well, apparently that was my mother-in-law's. So I brushed my teeth this morning with Kelly's toothbrush. So, but anyways, I say all of that because I have no idea why all of that happened to me. But here's the thing is, when you know that you're a part of God's plan, those little tiny things really don't bother you, all right? If my breath smells a little bit more like Kelly's this morning, it's okay, all right? That is an okay thing, all right? I don't know why, right? But it's part of God's intricate plan that's beyond our understanding, all right? All those things sometimes that happen to us because God's plan is different than man's plan. How y'all doing back there? We got them yet? Looking for the computer. Oh, all right, well. All right, you guys are going to have to follow along really close today because all the verses were up there and stuff. So it should be in my backpack back there somewhere. So, all right, so so you guys, God does a lot of things different than the way that we would normally do things. He uses donkeys to talk, right? He crucified Jesus before exalting him. He uses a left-handed man here in Judges. He uses a woman, as we talked about last week in Judges, even though he had mighty men. He uses a crazy man named Samson, all right, that's just really, really egotistical and kind of flies off the handle. He uses people that we would not normally use. And today we see that he uses a man named Gideon. I want you guys to look with me here, verses 1 through 3. Judges chapter 7, and as we do that, let's pray that God would speak to us. Also, just that he would just quiet down just a little bit the room this morning. I know there's just a lot of little distractions, things going on. But God, I just want to ask that you would just speak to us this morning, Father, through your word. God, this a lot of times can just be the time that we kind of sit through. But God, I pray that, Lord, this would be a moment, Father, where you would speak to us, Father, in our moments. God, I believe that Lord, you don't give us your word just for us to go over or for us to know mentally or intellectually. You give it to us because we need it. God, you give it to us because, Lord, you want to speak to us personally. So, God, I pray, Father, you would speak to us this morning. Every single one of us, Father, individually, that you would speak to us this morning. As we study this chapter, Father, in Judges, we study the life and one of the big stories of this man named Gideon. We love you, Jesus. We ask all these things in your precious and holy name. Amen. Look with me starting at verse 1 through verse 3, and this is what it says. Judges 7, verses 1 through 3. So we're going to kind of look at this story just section by section. So there's this guy named Gideon, and his name is Jerubbaal, or something kind of like that, all right? But we're going to call him Gideon. I like that name better. And it says this in verse 1. So Gideon and his army, they got up early, and they went as far as the spring of Harod. The armies of Midian were camped north of them in the valley near the hill of Moreh. The Lord said to Gideon, "You have too many warriors with you. If I let all of you fight the Midianites, the Israelites will boast to me that they saved themselves by their own strength. Therefore, tell the people that whoever is timid or afraid may leave this mountain and go home." So 22,000 of them went home, leaving only 10,000 who were willing to fight. You guys, in these first three verses, one of the things that we see about God, again, we're looking at, man, the big picture of things that God does. We can get caught up in Gideon or Samson, or we can get caught up in Deborah last week, but really the more important things is, what are the things that we see about God in this book and in this particular chapter, in this story? And one of the things that we see about God is this, is that God prefers to use people in the plan who trust him. Now, Reagan, is everybody in the plan? Yeah, everybody's in the plan. But one of the things that I've noticed is that people who trust God a lot of times get to be more a part of his plan. And we see that throughout Scripture, that there a lot of times seems to be an element of faith, an element of trust that's needed a lot of times. All right, and a lot of times we see here that God's plan is way, way different than man's plan. So if we were to start right here in this chapter, and I had some math up there for you. We'll see if they get up there here in a few minutes. But 22,000 guys Gideon starts with. 22,000 guys, all right? And he says, okay, anybody who is timid or afraid, all of those guys, they can go home. They can go home. So that leaves us with 22,000 guys that go home, all right? So as we started 32,000, 22,000 guys that go home, 10,000 guys who are willing to keep fighting and say, okay, we're with you, Gideon, whatever. You know, we're not afraid. Man, we're going to go into battle with you. We don't care. Here we come, all right? So that's what we're left with, is about 10,000 men out of 32,000 that said we're not afraid. That's God math, right there. God told Gideon to do this. He said, Gideon, I want you to kind of start figuring out who's really with us, who's not. All right? That's what I call God math right there. 10,000 men should not be greater than 32,000 men. In my mind, I'd rather take the 32,000 guys any day, right? But God tells Gideon, I want you just to go into fight with the 10,000 who are willing to fight. That's God math. We also see a lot of times God's science, all right, sometimes, all right? If you were to ask a scientist, all right, well, what happened, all right? Big Bang Theory happened, all right? And then that's how we got you. That's how you got here. And they would explain it with a lot of different, oh, hey, bam, good, I'm glad we got that. They would explain it with a lot of, that was perfect timing, by the way. Thank you, guys. Y'all give them a round of applause in the back. Thank you, guys. A little scare right there, because I thought this was good stuff. All right, what a scientist would tell you is that there's all these crazy words, right? You get this is Big Bang expansion. This is how it happens. Quantum fluctuations and inflation, and you know, you got the afterglow light pattern for 380,000 years, and then you have the dark ages when there's really no stars, and then you have the dark energy accelerated expansion that really starts to really make space grow even more. And I just start kind of getting lost. All right, I was not a science guy at all. Science was not my specialty. I can just kind of like list out those things a little bit, but I start going, man, isn't it way simpler just to say, you know what, God did it? That's the God way. God just made it all happen. Scientists try to explain what God does, and that's what we get. Look at the next one. The next one's even crazier. Check this out. I have no idea what to tell you about that right there, but I actually found this, all right? If you look at the Big Bang Theory, check this out, all right? You got Big Bang, like right there, and then like way out on the edge, you have like the man. All right, this is how we got people. Was that? That's crazy, all right? For me, I go, okay, I'll take God's science over that any day. You know why? Because that, to me, is a bunch of people just coming up with a bunch of mumbo-jumbo, whereas God says, you know what? Man, in the beginning, I created the earth, and that's way simpler. I created man. And so God doesn't always do things the way that man does things. In fact, sometimes we just complicate things, don't we? Sometimes we just make things so complex and even confusing. Seems crazier sometimes to think that some of these things for me happen the scientific way than the God way. So keep looking with me, all right? Let's look back at our story. Let's look back at the God way. Verses 8 and 9. Verses 8 and 9 say this. By the way, can y'all just jump back to that picture of Presley? That was a great picture. You have to show that picture real quick. This is just a little tangent for us real quick. Oh, you haven't imported. All right, never mind. I'll show it to you later at the game or something. All right, so 8 and 9, here we go. So Gideon collected the provisions and ram's horns of the other warriors and sent them home. But he kept the 300 men with him. The Midian camp was in the valley just below Gideon. That night the Lord said, "Get up, go down into the Midian camp, for I have given you victory over them. But if you're afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your servant Purah. Listen to what the Midianites are saying, and you will be greatly encouraged. Then you will be eager to attack." All right? And, sorry, I read the wrong verses. I'll just get back up here. Here we go. But the Lord told Gideon, "There's still too many people. Bring them down to the spring, and I will test them to determine who will go with you and who will not." When Gideon took his warriors down to the water, God told him to do something really weird. Okay, this is kind of the weird part. Divide the men into two groups. In one group, put all those who cup the water in their hands and lap it up with their tongues like a dog. In the other group, put all those who kneel down and drink with their mouths in the stream. Only 300 of the men out of 10,000 drank from their hands, and all the others got down on their knees and drank with their mouths in the stream. Can you imagine Gideon watching this right here? Got to cover this before we get to the next verse. This part right here is just, I think, one of the most phenomenal things that we see about Gideon here. Can you imagine? He's watching 10,000 men drink water in front of him right here in this stream. And can you imagine? Don't you think he was thinking, God, are you sure you didn't get that switched? Because every single guy that I'm watching is doing it the wrong way. Every single guy I'm watching is not doing it the way God wanted him to do it. I can't take that guy. I can't take that. Oh, I can't take that guy. Oh, I really wanted to take that guy. And he didn't. I mean, I'm sure it was hard for him to find hardly any guy as he looked across that stream of water that was doing it the right way. I've heard it said with this passage before. I've heard preachers preach that he did this because he wanted to use people who were ready, people who were alert, people who were ready for the call of God and call of God in their lives. I really don't think that it had anything to do with that for these men. I think God was just doing something kind of funny, actually, right here. I think he just decided, I'm going to do a God thing. I'm gonna get this group of 10,000 people down to 300 because this is more about me than it is about the warrior. This is more about me than it is about an army. This is more about me than it is about anything else. This battle, this fight that's coming up, it has nothing to do with these men and how they drink water. And so we have the God math again. Do we have the God math up there, guys? There we go. So 22,000 minus 21,700 equals 300. All right? 300 guys that are left. 300 guys out of 32,000. Is this how you would win a battle? Probably not. Not how I would win a battle. But I also wouldn't do this. You have our next one, guys? There we go. I also wouldn't do that. You know what that is? That's DNA. I wouldn't build every single person on this planet with that. Would you? I wouldn't do that. But that's what God did. I wouldn't make a cell like this. I wouldn't build every person on the planet with that. I mean, that's kind of disgusting looking when you really think about it. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't make an eye like this. I was with Reese just recently. She just got glasses, and this is her first pair of glasses, and she was sitting there in the optometrist's little office at the eye doctor's office at Walmart. And she looked on the wall, and she saw a picture that was kind of similar to that right there. And as she looked at that picture, she goes, "Ew, what is that?" It's like, "That's your eye." She's like, "Yeah, no way." You know, like she's like all like preteen, like, "That's disgusting. Like, why would God make it like that?" Because he knows better than us. Just one more real quick. This is a piece of hair. I thought that was kind of interesting. God made even hair that intricate. I would just be like, "Oh, there's a piece of hair." You know, like, I mean, I wouldn't even get that intricate. I wouldn't even go that far. And yet God did everything, and he designed everything down to the tiniest little piece of hair on your head. God creates. God wins. God moves in his purposes, and he moves his purposes forward in ways that don't always make sense to us. To me, I believe that should grow our trust in him, should grow the peace that we have in his plan when it does start to look nothing like ours. When my life starts to look nothing like the one that I intended, sometimes that can be a really, really good thing. If I'll start to look and see, okay, God, what is it that you're doing? Because I thought I was headed this way. So God, now that you've got me headed this way, what do you want? God, this big thing just happened and it just got my attention in my life. So God, what are you wanting for me? How can I press into you more? How can I care about you more? How can my trust in you grow more, even in the middle of this thing that has surprised me? I know it has not surprised you. Verse 8 through 16, I started to read them earlier. They're what I call the dream verses of this chapter. So they go down, and I started to read them, so we'll pick it back up in verse 11. Verse 11 says, "Listen to what the Midianites are saying, and you will be greatly encouraged, and then you will be eager to attack." All 300 of you guys, man, you're going to be eager to attack. Really? All right, so let's go find out. So Gideon took Purah, and he went down to the edge of the enemy camp. The armies of Midian, Amalek, the people of the east, all sorts of armies, they'd all settled in this valley. It says like a swarm of locusts, way more than 300 guys. Their camels, it says, were like grains of sand on the seashore, too many to count. And Gideon crept up just as a man was telling his companion about a dream. The man said, "I had this dream, and in my dream a loaf of barley bread came tumbling down into the Midian camp. It hit a tent, turned it over, and knocked it flat." His companion answered, your dream can only mean one thing. God has given Gideon, the son of Joash, the Israelite, victory over Midian and all of its allies. And when Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he bowed in worship before the Lord. Then he returned to the Israelite camp and he shouted, get up, for the Lord has given you victory over the Midianite hordes. He divided the 300 men into 3 groups, and he gave each man a ram's horn and a clay jar with a torch in it. Now I ask you a question this morning. If you were Gideon and you went down into this camp and you heard one man tell a dream, would you continue to move forward with what God told you to do? I don't know. I don't know if I would. Okay, well, this one guy's dream, I don't know, like about some piece of bread rolling into a piece of camp. I don't know. This little tent, all right, gets flattened, all right, by a big giant piece of bread. That sounds a little bit like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, all right? That's all I can think in my head right now. And I'm thinking, what? Why did that do it for Gideon? Well, Gideon, man, I think it's not that dream did it. He just used that one thing as a yes, let's go, all right? We understand that God is for us, that he's not against us. We trust in God. God told us to do this, and so we're going to keep doing it. And here's the thing. Here's the thing that I think we got to understand from Gideon here in this dream is that sometimes, man, God will blow our minds if we will just dare to dream. I don't think enough Christians dream. I don't think enough followers of Jesus really dream about what God could use them to do, how he could use them to change whole family trees, how he could use them to change whole towns and whole cities and whole communities. I don't think God allows us a lot of times, or we don't allow ourselves a lot of times to dream big enough about what God wants to do with us as a group of people. As we talked about last week, man, God says where 2 or 3 are gathered together, there am I in the midst of them. And I'm a God that can take 300 men, and I can wipe out entire armies if those men will listen to me. 300 men versus thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even 100,000 people. We don't even know. You know, they had enough camels to look like sands of the sea. That's a lot of camels. What could God do with you if he can take 300 men, Scripture tells us here in just a second, with jars and French horns? 300 men without a sword, but with jars and French horns. If he can beat a whole army with that, what could God do with us? Verse 17, so this is kind of the conclusion of the story here. Are you ready? It says this, then he said to them, keep your eyes on me. When I come to the edge of the camp, all right, here we go. We're going to do this, all right? Do just as I do. Keep your eyes on me. When I come to the edge of the camp, do just as I do. As soon as I and those with me blow the ram's horns, I want you to blow your horns too all around the entire camp. All right, we're going to have all these French horns blowing, and that's supposed to do it, all right? And then you're going to shout as loud as you can, for the Lord and for Gideon. For the Lord and for Gideon. So it was just after midnight, verse 19, after the changing of the guard. For some reason, I always think of Robin Hood, all right, like the cartoon version, all right, right there, the changing of the guard, all right. You see the birds kind of walk. Okay, anyways, so the changing of the guard's happening, all right. They're switching, and that's the time to kind of attack, I guess, here, to yell or to blow your horn, whatever they're going to do. And Gideon and the 100 men with him, his third of the group, reached the edge of the Midianite camp. And then suddenly, without any warning, they blow the ram's horns, they break their clay jars, and then all 3 groups blew their horns and broke their jars. They held the blazing torches in their left hand and the horns in their right hand, and they all shouted, a sword for the Lord and for Gideon. For the Lord and for Gideon. Why do you think God had Gideon have all these men say that? See, this is what I believe, is that God will bring us victory when we trust in his way and not our way. God will bring us victory when we believe that he has the victory over our lives. He lets us be included in that. See, this is the amazing, amazing story of hope that we see throughout Judges, is that, man, when these people of God are with Gideon, when these people of God are with Deborah, when these people of God are with the leader that God has raised up for them, they could conquer anything. But when these people of God cycled out of that and cycled back into sin and began to worship other things, began to care about other things more than they cared about their God, all sorts of destruction. They were in bondage. They were in slavery. Faced all sorts of stuff, and then they would cry to the Lord. I would much rather be with the Lord, for the Lord, in my life than against Him. I would much rather my thoughts be dominated by what He wants me to think about, my actions to be dominated by what He wants me to do, than the alternative. What about you? How much do you trust Him this morning? How much do you cling to Him even when His way doesn't look like your way? Even when your life doesn't look the way that you want it to in a certain area? Does that make you start to back away from Him? Or does that make you run to Him? These men are about to run into a valley. 300 of them. Against hundreds, maybe tens of thousands, maybe 100,000 people. And yet God gives them the victory because they trust that He is for them, not against them. Finish with these two verses this morning. It says, each man stood at his position around the camp and watched as all the Midianites rushed around in a panic, shouting as they ran to escape. When the 300 Israelites blew their ram's horns, the Lord caused the warriors in the camp to even fight against each other with their swords. Those who were not killed fled to the places as far away as Bethshittah, near Zererah, and to the border of another weird word near Tabith, all right? They just start running and going crazy. But it says that even before they ran to the valley to begin to chase them, even before they begin to kick them out, cast them out so they could have peace in their land again, they're standing up there. They've just yelled as loud as they can, for the Lord and for Gideon. As loud as they can, for the Lord. Okay, what's going to happen? For the Lord and for Gideon. All across, all around this valley. These guys just yelled this. They just broke horns. They've got these blazing torches. You got to figure there was just a little tremble. What's about to happen? These guys about to just kind of obliterate us. What's going to happen? We did what God told us to do. You know what it says they had to do after that? They stood and they watched what God did for them as He conquered their enemies right there in front of their eyes. And they had a first row, the same way we're going to have, well, maybe not a first row view of the Cincinnati Reds play today. They had first row view of the power of God in their lives. Because that's what I want. I want a first row view. I don't want to hear about what God did in somebody else's life. I don't want to hear about what God did in somebody else's church. I want to hear about what God's doing through you. I want to hear about what God's doing through us. You guys, I got to hear last week about, and I got to see with my own eyes, some of the guys sitting over in this section over here, I got to see one grace group reach tons and tons and tons of their neighbors, feed them meals and love on them for about 3 hours. All right, I got to see them cooking burgers and doing all that stuff. Why? Because it was a group of people that said, you know what? We're going to go out and we're going to care about other people. We're not just going to care about ourselves. We're not just going to be happy and content with who's already here. We're going to go and we're going to try to make a difference in somebody else's life. I watched the Acre small group go and do that, our grace group go and do that last week. And I love you guys getting reports of what God has done through you. As you go and you lead someone to Christ, as you go and you invite somebody and they come, as you go and you just say, you know what, I'm just going to make myself available to people. See, because that's not the norm. The norm is I like the group of people that I'm in. See, I want a front row seat. I hope that you want a front row seat to stand and to watch the greatness of God's plan. Because see, the thing is this, that the plan was not about warriors. It was about God. This morning, what areas of your life do you need God to fight for you this morning? What areas of your life would you say, you know what, I don't know what to do. But God, I want to trust you. I want to trust you more than myself, more than me just thinking I can figure it out. In what places does your trust need to grow in him? Gideon, he stopped doing things his way, and that is when God started doing things the winning way for him and for his life. So this morning, I wonder, what has God told you? What does he want to tell you to do? Maybe that you're not doing. What does he want to tell you to stop doing that you are doing? But most importantly, are you finding peace in his plan instead of just living out your own? Would you bow your heads with me this morning? God, I thank you that there's no perfect person in this room. And as we've talked about, Father, week after week through this series, through this study, God, I'm so thankful, God, that you don't tell us that we have to be better. God, you just tell us to trust in you more. God, you just tell us that if we'll follow your plan for our lives, and if we'll start listening to what that is, God, that you will take care of the rest. God, it's our heart's desire this morning, God, to want to have a front row seat to see how awesome, God, that you are. I don't want to live this whole life, Lord, missing that. Lord, I want to see that time and time and time and time and again. Jesus, I just want to pray first and foremost this morning for anybody in here who's just not at peace right now, Father, in their lives. They're searching for it. They want more of it. God, I pray that they would seek that from you more than they would seek it from anyone else. God, I pray for anybody who just, if they're being honest with you just right here in this moment. God, this morning they say their plan has been more important than your plan for their life. God, you're in it, but you're number 3 or number 4 or number 5 on the list of important things right now. And God, I pray that, Lord, they would put you back, Father, in your rightful place as leader of their life, as Lord of their life. God, I pray as a church and as a group, Lord, you would help us to want to love you, live for you, more than we live for anything else, because you're a faithful God. You never leave us or forsake us. When we're afraid, we can trust in you. And God, you are the power, Father, that we desire to have in our life. So Jesus, I pray, Father, that you would help us to seek you more and more. Take whatever next step, God, you ask us to take, just like you asked Gideon, so that we can do incredible things, Father, for you. Jesus, as we sing this last song, Father, would you help us to think about, Lord, what you're doing in our lives. Father, how we can live for you more. We ask all these things in your precious and holy name.